been various reports that the father of one of the young men that was with Nolan Wells on the boat that he went out to Horn Island with, and the three of them white gentlemen came back, white young men came back without him, is threatening to sue or attack many of us.
I don't know what happened, but I got your history in Mississippi. And the history tells me black boy go out with three white kids come back. There's a blurred story on what happened. Now y'all all hostile and all upset. Didn't have the keys, but then you had the keys. Some about this don't make sense given your history. And I'm gonna stay on this until we find out what happened.
So the attorneys for Jax, Morgan, and Warren, they sent out pretty much a cease and desist letter, meaning you guys better shut up, stop blaming my clients, stop making these inconsistent statements, or else we're taking you to court. I'm going to break down to you this document that was sent to them and explain everything for you, because I'm seeing, it's funny, you still see certain narratives being pushed even though the documents are right in front of your face. It's crazy. Stay tuned. Fugitive TV. Welcome to Fugitive TV. I am your host, Ray Marcel. And what we do here is we take a look at cases of missing individuals, anything true crime. I give it a deeper look. I break down theories for you or certain perspectives, and I can give you a different type of look on a lot of these cases because I was once a fugitive on the run from the law myself. I ran for 15 years, lived in different countries under different names, turned myself in. Now I have this YouTube channel. I'm a motivational speaker. I help family members locate missing individuals and even sometimes help them locate fugitives on the run. Well, we're back to Nolan Wells on this episode because there has been a massive potential lawsuit in the works here. So the attorney for Jax, Morgan, and Warren have filed, I wouldn't say filed because it's not filed, but sent them a letter, pretty much a demand letter, like a cease and desist letter, meaning stop talking about my clients, stop making up rumors, false allegations, stop with these reports or else. So we're going to break down this document, okay? This 19-page letter, because I still see it's crazy. It's really crazy, guys. You have this letter right in front of us, and I still see certain people turning this letter into a narrative. They're turning the letter into a narrative. They're not even reading the whole letter. It's crazy. I don't know if people are getting paid to do this at this point in time or just delusional, but I'm going to read to you this 19-page letter and break it down to you. Now, shout out to Sarah Fields on X, who has been reporting on this case nonstop. And she is the one, I believe, the first one to leak the documents online. Now, this is from Taylor and Cox Law Firm when they wear the Call Cox hat. And then also Edward Andrew Politzik. Please, Politzik, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Speaking of Edward Politzik, shout out to you. Edward actually started following me back on X. Hopefully I can get that interview like I like to get soon with you. And Tyler as well. So this letter starts off by saying, Alfred, first of all, it's dated August 21st, 2026. Then it says Alfred Charles Sharpton Jr., aka Al Sharpton. Pre-suit demand regarding your defamation of Warren Hudson, Jax Batilio, and Morgan Seymour. Now you notice it's not signed off by a judge or there's no court document number or nothing like that. Now I've seen some creators, and the first thing they say is, you see this letter? It's not signed off by a judge. There's no court document. A cease and desist letter or what you can even call a demand letter. I wrote a couple demand letters myself in my businesses. You don't get them signed off by a judge. You don't have to get a docket number filed in court. All it is, it's a letter that's filed by your attorney. Your attorney draws up this letter, or you, and then all you do is send the letter to the opposing person saying deceased or cease and desist, meaning stop your talking of what you've been saying about me, or else, or you're demanding something. Like a demand letter could be for you to be quiet, or for you to pay me my money that you need to be paying me, or I'm going to take you to court if you don't follow these instructions or listen to my demands. That's what this letter is. So for anybody that's confused and hearing creators out there saying this is just show because there's no judge signed off with it or anything like that, that is typically, you don't need a judge for a demand or cease and desist letter. You can write a demand letter right now yourself to anybody. If an employer owes you some money or anything, a friend needs to pay you back, whatever the case is, you can write a letter to them and say, hey, you better do this and do this and do this by this date, or else this is what I'm going to do. So this is what this is about. Now, this letter goes on to say, Dear Sharpton, we represent Warren Jackson Morgan. This letter will serve as our only pre-suit demand regarding your defamatory statements about these completely innocent young men. This letter should come as no surprise to you, since you recently welcomed a lawsuit against you boasting at the National Association of the Black Journalists Convention, which he did. And this is in quote. But I will say this on stage. I want them to sue me first. This is what Al Sharpton said. You also stated, I want to depose your son. If you sue, the plaintiffs are deposed. And let's go civil court and kind of court you want to go to, because you can't make this make sense. We're happy to grant your wish. Unless you comply with the demand set forth in this letter, we will immediately be filing suit against you. See what I mean? Unless you comply with the demands set forth in this letter, we will immediately be filing suit against you. However, we are pleased that you are to welcome depositions, meaning taking you to court. While we are more than ready for Warren Jackson Morgan to sit for their dispositions and tell the truth under oath, we are most looking forward to your disposition. Meaning, are you going to tell the truth under oath? It's pretty much almost what that means right there. Smearing the reputation of innocent young men, mourning the loss of their friend to score cheap political points will prove far easier than explaining yourself under oath. Indeed, you will find dealing with us to be an altogether different experience than indulging in the slanderous rampage applauded by the fawning sycophants in the echo chamber of your inner circle. Remember I told you guys? I told you guys a couple videos ago. I was listening to some of their press conferences, and then I heard Al Sharpton sneaky sliding in political views to make sure you vote in January during the midterms for Democrats. Then not only that, they're having private parties. What's his name? Howard Jeffries, I think it is, or whatever, which he's up for an election, and I believe in New York for something. So they're having these, they're sliding in these political views, but using a Nolan Wells death to do it. And if you don't pay attention, it'll go right by you.
At this point, have to hope that one, we could deal with civil courts, or secondly, that there's a balance of power with the Democrats taking the House in November, and maybe the Judiciary Committee under that can at least put a check and balance on cases that need to be investigated. But we are right now where we have two parents, lovely parents. I've gotten to know them.
So the next page goes on to say, on July 14th, 2026, you appeared on the TMZ Live and spoke about events surrounding the tragic death of Nolan Wells. Speaking about the investigation into Nolan Wells' death, you stated, I was first of all stunned at the fact that this young man is going out. He and three friends, he black, they white. A day later, his mother and them start searching for him. I can't believe they got the exact quote of him stuttering the way he talks. That's crazy. No one comes forward, and then they find out after 2 days that they claim his body was washed up, and they had given his cell phone, his keys, to one of the 3 friends, saying he didn't want to go back from Horn Island with them. You then stated, have they brought these 3 young men in for questioning under oath? You again left no doubt who you were referring to when you stated, how does anybody say that? Oh, no, race played no role unless you know the 3 guys, and 3 guys were forthcoming. Continuing to racist vigil. You further identify your targets when you stated you got to look at the possibility of racism at different levels. 1, were any of the 3 guys racist? You later asked, have they interrogated the 3 young men? The 3 young men that I know of gave up their phones and talked to police that same night and the next day. It's in the report. There could be no doubt that you were intentionally referring to Warren, Jackson, Morgan, because that's the picture that was floating around. As evidenced by your multiple references to Nolan's 3 friends, the 3 young men, the 3 guys, and the fact that they are white. Your remarks were intended to accuse them of infamous crimes, publicly claim them as criminal, identify them as enemies, endanger them, subject them to threats, ridicule, and scorn. You clearly intended that your audience would know exactly who we're talking about, Warren, Jackson, Morgan. Your full defamatory statement set forth below contain lie after lie about each of the 3 young men. So here we go. I was first of all stunned at the fact that this young man is going out. He had 3 friends. He black, they white, and a day later, his mother them started searching for him. No one comes forward, and then they find out after 2 days, they claim his body was washed up, and they had given his cell phone and keys to one of the 3 friends, saying he didn't want to go back to Horn Island with them. I still find it crazy that they quoted exactly like I'm reading this, and I can picture Al Sharpton and remember how he's saying this. And it sounds like he's talking from 1962 still. So it's crazy. I'm reading this and I can picture it all in my head, probably because I have the clips of them all. Well, first of all, it's very, very unlikely for most 18-year-olds to ever give up their cell phone. But if you're going to stay on Horn Island, or you're going to stay on an island and nobody's there other than people, tourists or partiers, why would you want to give up your cell phone? Well, maybe because the cell phone was already on the boat. Al, have you ever been on the boat? Does anybody have a picture of Al on the boat fishing? I would like to see if anybody has a picture of Al on the boat fishing. Matter of fact, has Al ever been swimming in the water? Has Al ever been swimming in the water? Probably not. Doesn't want to mess up that perm he's got. Then when they track the cell phone down and find out which one of the young men had it and take the keys, which they first said they didn't have, then he had to admit it, he did. Of all the photos, text messages, and everything on the phone had been erased. So what hit me strange? 1, he's missing without a cell phone. So remember, Al is so busy talking about this cell phone. He even made a quote during the press conference. He said, what person doesn't go without their cell phone? I'm a grown man and wouldn't trust Crump with my cell phone, and everybody starts laughing. And I'm thinking to myself, Al, have you been on a boat fishing? Still wondering that. Have you jumped in the ocean? Are you the only one that's going to bring the water with you in the ocean, Al? Still wonder. Al, can you even swim? In one of your closing remarks, after calling for fairness and justice in response to Nolan's death, you asked if they can do this to a brightest of us. What can they do to the rest of us? Then on August 19, 2026, on what would have been Nolan's 19th birthday, you hosted an online vigil to honor his legacy. However, being that you are a megalodon, I think it's Esque, Devarak, I can't even pronounce that. You guys can help me. Or reputations, you could not resist the urge to launch more attacks against Warren, Jackson, and Morgan. There you made the following defamatory statement. He had his friends and community in Ocean Springs. And as one would do with friends, holidays you spent together on the 4th of July this year, he and 3 young white male friends, people he was acquainted with, decided to go to Horn Island. So basically they are quoting every time Al Sharpton went on stage or at a press conference and was saying, Nolan Wells was pretty much with only 3 white young men or 3 white boys. You got to remember, Al Sharpton went on stage and did that a lot.
Is dead, and 3 young men with him is not. They possessed his keys and his cell phone. His mother also raised. Why was all of his things, his text messages, his photos, and all erased from his cell phone? So there's a lot of concern here.
Nothing done wrong. When we hear that this young man was engaged in some kind of argument that was on tape, that his cell phone and keys ended up with one of the people that were there on the island and got away. He was one black with 3 young white men who happened to end up with his phone, happened to end up with his keys.
So on the next page, like I said, this is 19 documents, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just kind of going to skim through them and then give you what the details are so you can get a picture of that. Because not everybody's doing this. What they're doing is pretty much reading the first page and then they're going from there, right? You falsely accuse these 3 completely innocent young men of extremely serious wrongdoing that constitutes multiple felonies under Mississippi law, including but not limited to murder, unaliving. Remember, on a small channel like mine, we really can't say the N-word all the time, or else that will get flagged. All right. Hindering prosecution in the first degree and tampering physical evidence, exacerbating your false accusations. It appears that you have conducted no case investigation, including, okay, an excusable failing to visit Horn Island, which, like I just said, has he been on a boat? Has Al Sharpton ever been on a boat? To go fishing and swimming in the ocean. I'm not talking about a yacht party. Nothing less. Embodied by decades of accountability, you consider yourself untouchable with a green light to peddle your damaging lies as you stand atop the glided soapbox. So basically they're saying he's on top of the soapbox, like that term they used to use a long time ago, yelling to everybody in the crowd, spreading these false lies. The facts as they pertain to Warren Jackson Morgan are straightforward. They arrived on the island at approximately 10:50 a.m. on July 4th as part of a large mixed race, tight-knit Ocean Springs French group traveling together with others in 3 boats, meaning it wasn't just Nolan and 3 white friends. It was together 25 to 30 people from my knowledge of what it was. Okay. Nolan was aboard the Triton with 8 other friends. Morgan was on the Palm Beach with 3 other friends. Warren and Jax were on the tide line with 15 other friends. Wow, it was 15 on the other boat. Actually 17. At no time on the way out to the island were Warren, Jax, and Morgan on the same boat with Nolan, it goes on to say. Next page, look at the picture right here. So we get a picture pretty much of almost everybody together for the first time. Further, none of these boats are owned by Warren, Jackson, Morgan, nor by their families. The boating party consists of 30 individuals in total. The below pictures illustrates that this was a large group that went them to Horn Island. At the time Nolan was last seen on the island by anyone in a boating party, there were approximately 2,000 people there enjoying Independence Day. Below are 2 pictures showing the sheer amount of people on the island just in the far northwest of the portion. Nolan and his friends spent their time on the island, socializing, drinking alcohol. At no time while Warren, Jackson, Morgan were on the island where they were alone with Nolan. By all accounts, while Warren and Jackson Morgan were on the island, Nolan was at no point in time alone. Nolan was never in distress, hurt, injured, or in physical danger in the slightest while Warren, Jackson Morgan was there. Nolan, just like most everyone on the island, did not have his cell phone in his pocket the entire day. Just the opposite. On the island, it is normal to store your cell phone and electronics on the boat so that it will not be damaged by the salt water. I've been preaching this forever since this case, but nobody wants to listen. The water is so murky that if a phone is dropped, it is almost impossible to retrieve it. Plus, the salt will always damage electronic goods. You want to test your theory, you go take your brand new phone and you go out to the ocean, if you happen to live by an ocean, and you put your phone in the ocean and you let me know how well your phone works after that. Go ahead. Let me know. I'm just curious. I'm not going to try it. I know better. Nolan, just like most everyone on the island, did not have a cell phone in the pocket the entire day. Just the opposite on the island. There's nowhere. We already read that part. While Warren and Jackson Morgan were there, Nolan seemed in good spirits, enjoying Independence Day. Now, see, here's a picture right here. Nolan is in his picture, so they took a close-up. See right there? Actually, Nolan is in the picture holding up a can. It's not a can of Snapple. It's not a can of apple juice. So this is the second, actually third picture of Nolan holding up a can of an alcohol container. At approximately 3 p.m., Warren saw Nolan alive and well wading in the water with a young woman holding each other. Nolan approached happy, enjoying himself with the young woman who he spent much of the day with. As you well know, when you made your defamatory statements or should have known, had you cared about the truth, Warren Jackson Morgan then left the island with a large group of friends, 27 in a boating party, okay, in total. At approximately 4:28 p.m., all while Nolan was alive and well. So if they came with 30 and left with 27, that means some more individuals stayed behind besides Nolan. That's what that would mean, right? The 4:28 departure is also confirmed by numerous witnesses who also confirmed that Nolan decided to remain on the island and did not leave with Warren Jackson Morgan. Nolan did not retrieve his phone from the boat. Yeah, because he probably forgot it was on there. I mean, how many? I forgot my phone a bunch of times. So anybody watching this, you've never forgot nothing, ever? The Palm Beach carrying 3 individuals, including Morgan, left the Triton carrying 8 individuals and the Thailand carrying 16 individuals, including Jackson and Warren. Departed shortly, therefore, after. Nolan was not one of the 27 members of the return boating party. Okay? However, the departure was not without complication. One of the boats, the Triton, was taken on water due to the defective bilge pump. Multiple people told Nolan to get on the boat, but he wanted to stay on the island with a young woman he was spending the day with. Nolan chose of his own free will and accord to stay on the island and return home later. He was not the only friend to stay later than the larger group, because it says 27 left, so 3 people stayed behind. Okay? Here we go with some pictures. We all know this picture, right? The outgoing CTO call. Look, guys, we have more pictures that we never even got before. Right here on the bottom. Guys, do you remember in my last video, there was a video of people saying, oh, that's Nolan's hand. Do you guys remember that? People took this video and were saying, that's Nolan's hand. And I replied back with, that's not Nolan's hand. That's something attached to the rope. So you can find the rope when it's in the water, most likely a flotation device. And it was orange. Look at the picture we have here. You see that? What is that? That's the device. I swear, some of you guys are just idiots, man. Some of you guys are idiots.
What was this I have circled here? And this is what it told me. It says, looking closely at the circled area, the orange object appears to be a person's arm, forearm, and possibly part of their hand extending across the stern transom area. I don't think the orange...
Well, as you see, some people video right here, which we are going to take a look at, all right? Oh, man. So let's take a look at this, guys. You can let me know what you think, if it's his hand or not, all right? So as you see, the guy right here, he's pulling a rope. See the rope? Let's look at it in full speed. So you see him pulling a rope, right? Let's look at it a couple more times so, you know, you guys can see that he is going up. But at the same time, it's going down and forward. It's following the young man who is pulling the rope. So it looks like that object is getting pulled towards that way. To not think that's a hand. What do you think that's for? What do you think it's for? I'll let you think. Well, now you can see that is not a hand. Does that look like a hand to you? It's not Nolan Wells' hand, people. So can we stop with that one? It took approximately an hour and a half to return to the mainland with the tide line towing the Triton due to this mechanical issue. Halfway home, the motor of the Triton was able to trim down. Electrical equipment regained function, and the group was able to remove the plug on the boat at the excess water. So you see these pictures right here. Okay. Now, a lot of people were like, it doesn't look like it was sinking. Like they think the water. This is how you know when people have never been on the boat. This is crazy. But you know what? I can't, because some people probably live in places that they don't have access to a boat. So I can't talk. I get it. I'm just fortunate enough to have friends that have boats. But the water could be back here in the back of the boat, not up here in the front. Because the bilge pump is back. As you see, actually, it even looks like the boat is heavier on the bottom than in the back than it is the front of the boat. Now, there still could be water here. We just can't see it because of the angle. Then it goes on to say, later that night, the friend group became alarmed and concerned when they realized none of them had heard from Nolan. By approximately 10 p.m., members of the group, including Warren, Jackson, Morgan, began contacting mutual friends to locate Nolan. None had heard from him or knew his whereabouts. At approximately 11:07 p.m., Warren personally called Christine Wells to ask whether Nolan had returned home. And that's what Warren said on his interview with Officer Tatum. And then they even showed this screenshot of him calling her. All right. Then he called the Coast Guard right after. Mind you, while Warren was on the phone with the Coast Guard, he and Christine were constantly exchanging text messages. Okay. So these are the text messages that they were even saying. So all that talk of the boys aren't talking, they weren't cooperating, they lowered up right away, was all a lie. That was all we heard when this case first started. It was all a lie. And these are the text messages which I've read in a prior video of Nolan and Christine. I'm sorry, not Nolan, but Warren and Christine talking to one another that same night, July 4th. It says 1 minute after getting off the call with Coast Guard, Warren called Christine again to inform her that he spoke to them and they were notified. So he called her again. He also told her the details about where the group was on the island, where they last saw Nolan, and other relevant information. At 12:25 a.m., Warren received a call from a local member of the Coast Guard. But it gets better, Al. Because at 1 a.m. on the dot, Christine and Warren talked for a third time. This time, Christine called Warren. She told him that Jackson County Sheriff's Department would be calling him so that he could give them more information. Warren agreed and spoke with a deputy or investigator on another individual's phone. This just keeps getting better and better and better. I'm sure you can agree, Al, that if you had just committed a heinous and infamous crime on an island, calling and texting the victim's mother, calling to find men and women in the Coast Guard with their marine investigative expertise, and speaking of the Jackson County Sheriff's Department, would be some of the dumbest moves you can possibly make, which I would agree. Later, just after midnight on July 5th, Javon Williams' mother arrived at Jackson's house, announced with a group of people, and most of whom were unknown to Warren and Jackson Morgan. Those individuals let themselves in the house without permission, demanding Nolan's cell phone and whereabouts. Jack's parents were not home, so this was at Jack's parents' house. A female friend retrieved Nolan's phone from the Wyatt's truck and handed it to Javon's mother without incident or delay. And no time did Warren, Jackson Morgan so much as touch Nolan's phone. And no time did they have actual possession of Nolan's phone. And no time did they have constructive possession of Nolan's phone. And no time did they access a breach in his phone. Then after 2:24 a.m. on July 5th, Nolan's stepfather, Elmore Wansley, came to Jackson's house and asked Jax whether he had possession of Nolan's keys. Nolan spent the night at Jackson's house on July 3rd into the early July 4th so they can all get together and go to the island. All right. Now, it does go on to say Elmore wasn't alone. There was a group of other individuals with him. After giving Nolan's key to Elmore, the group with him refused to leave the property. Even when asked to leave by Jackson, his brother, the group remained there and demanded answers as to Nolan's location. The group became disruptive. After refusing to leave repeatedly, Jackson's brother finally had to call 911. Ocean Springs Police Department arrived at the scene. The group finally left the property, and Jackson's brother told police about Nolan not returning with them. They told officers truthfully that no one had seen him and that an unruly group came to the house to locate Nolan's keys and demand answers from them. The next day at approximately 10:30 a.m. on July 5th, Warren, together with Katie Hudson, Seymour, David Seymour, Brooks Edmiston, and Jax returned to Horn Island by boat to search for Nolan. That search was joined by units of the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft, additional private vessels. Neither Warren, Jax, nor Morgan has any knowledge of what happened to Nolan after the last confirmed sighting on Horn Island. None of them had any involvement whatsoever on his disappearance or his death. So in a couple pages, he goes on to state the false allegations. He goes on to state that you have not went to visit Horn Island yourself. You have not done proper investigation, which I don't think they have, because I don't think they've even reached out to talk with. If you were going to do a proper investigation, wouldn't you investigate the people who were last with Nolan? Wouldn't that make sense? But I don't think they wouldn't even question any of the friends. They're making press conferences, and that's really about it. Now, this says legal analysis. You will presumptively attempt to escape liability for your disgusting accusations against Warren, Jackson, Morgan by claiming opinion. You certainly cannot claim truth since your statements were all category false. Alice, this is no defense for the reasons discussed below. In Mississippi, false statements, whether written or spoken, which tends to injure one's reputation, thereby expose them to public hatred, contempt, or ridicule, degrade them in society, lessen them in public esteem, or lower them in confidence of the community, are liable for defamation. To establish a claim for defamation, an ordinary plaintiff must prove a false defamatory statement concerning another, an unprivileged publication to a third party, fault amounting at least to negligence on the part of the publisher, either accountability or statement irrespective or special harm or existence of special harm caused by the publication. The statement is considered false if it would produce a different effect in the mind of a reader. Meaning basically that you can't just go out and start saying things and then claim to say, oh, this is just my opinion. But the way you're saying it will make somebody think that, hey, this person is responsible for what happened. Pretty much is what they're describing right here. So here is the demand. So here's the deal, Al. Warren, Jackson, Morgan hereby formally demand that you apologize. 4, retract and delete every false defamatory statement about them, including, but not limited to those, specially identified in the correspondence. Apologize publicly, both verbally and in written, for your false and defamatory statements. Cease further publication or replication of your false and defamatory statements. Expressly acknowledge that the statements identified above were false and defamatory. State clearly that your allegations of unaliving, hindering prosecution, and tampering with physical evidence have no basis in evidence or reality. Retract and delete any statement, headline, caption, thumbnail, description, video, post, or other publication that states or implies the fact that Warren, Jackson, Morgan committed any crime. Publish the apologies and retractions in the same manner and medium as original publication, with sufficient prominence or reach sustainability the same audience, and pin for a minimum of 7 days. For any online publication to pin an apology. So basically, they are saying, hey, we demand you apologize. Okay? Send a public apology. Retract any statements you have said. Take down these interviews that you have said. It's pretty much what they want them to do. So at the end of the letter, they gave them a deadline. They said 10 days. So like I said, a demand letter. So they're demanding 10 days. And they're saying if you don't respond or your legal team doesn't respond in 10 days, then they're going to take this as it's time to go to court. So no, you do not have to get this signed off by a judge. You do not have to follow this in court and get a docket number. This is not a scare tactic. Some people can use it as a scare tactic, okay? They can. Why don't you bring that up with the other defamation cases that have happened in the past where people got a demand letter or a cease and desist letter and didn't follow through, and look what happened to them. They got sued. You guys let me know. Do you think Al Sharpton is actually going to apologize? Do you think that he is going to stop with? Do you think he's going to change how he says certain things? We've seen Nancy Grace slowly kind of change what she's saying on this whole topic too. We've seen that. So is Al Sharpton going to do the same thing? Or is he going to still stand 10 toes down in the dirt and possibly go down sinking with the ship? What do you think he should do? Should he apologize, or do you want to watch him keep going so something can happen? I kind of want him to keep going because I myself is just catching him in these lies. All they got to do, if he erased everything off social media, I still got all evidence on my videos. I still got it clipped up, ready to go in court. All right, just hit me up. It's right there. You guys let me know what you think about all this, okay? Please like, subscribe, join the membership if you can. Follow on X, Fugitive TV. Go like on Facebook, Fugitive TV, all right? Trying to get all the social media going and with the Facebook and the X as well. I'm posting a lot more. And once again, shout out to Edward, the attorney, for following me back on X. Really appreciate that. Please go like and subscribe, comment down below. Take care of one another, love one another. Look out at your surroundings, watch your surroundings. Until next time, this is Fugitive TV, and I'm out.